Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. It is me, Jordan Young, back with another Bussin' Certified Hood Classic. Today we are going to be looking back at some of the biggest sneaker news stories from 2023. A lot of interesting stuff went down this year, plenty of juicy scandals, and what I can all but guarantee in this episode is I'm gonna forget some of them. Let's kick things off with some of this year's biggest lawsuits. You guys might remember back in January, Nike filed a trademark infringement lawsuit against Bathing Ape. This caught a lot of people off guard because it's been a sneaker legend for a long time as to why Nike haven't sued Bape in the past, given that the Bapester, which came out in 2005, has always been looked upon as a knockoff Air Force One. But apparently there was some kind of informal agreement between Nike and Bape, wherein Bape agreed to slightly modify the design of the Bapester and just keep the majority of their business localized to the Asia region, thus not encroaching in on the US market and Nike's sales. And for a long time, this coexistence was pretty harmonious. But fast forward to 2021, Bathing Ape decided to resurrect the Bapester in its original contentious form, alongside other models like the Skatester and the Corteiz, which look very similar to the Nike Dunk Low as well as the Jordan 1 Low. And you couple that together with an increase in physical presence in the US, and you have the heckles of Nike surely aroused. The lawsuit is still ongoing. In the past few days, a court has rejected Bape's bid to dismiss Nike's allegations, and so I think we are going to see a settlement of some description coming about early in 2024. Other brands were catching strays as well from Nike this year. They sued Lululemon and New Balance and Skechers over similar trademark infringements with regard to Nike's patented Flyknit technology. Nike alleges that all of these brands have copied their Flyknit fabrication techniques, usages of certain materials, and whilst these legal grounds seem a little bit shakier to me, it can't be denied that Nike certainly have the litigious wherewithal to see these cases through. And then we have Nike suing these fake sneaker influencers. It's often been a topic much thought about and spoken about in sneaker culture as to why are Nike not doing more to combat reps. But the reality is, because these counterfeit items are manufactured in China, their limited legal jurisdiction means that a lot of the potential prosecution is out of the question given their geographical location. But because these fake sneaker influencers are residing in the USA and have been acting as conduits for these Chinese counterfeit manufacturers, they have been ripe for the ripping, and to a large extent these cats have been snitching on themselves because all of their illegal or nefarious or questionable activity has been played out in real time in broad daylight on their social media channels and on the websites that they own and operate. And in order to infiltrate their subreddits and Discord groups, all you have to do is click a couple of buttons. And so what we can learn from these Nike lawsuits is that they are looking to protect the integrity of their brand, protect and consolidate their access to the consumer market, and pick off any foes that may be standing in their way. As recently as today, Nike have said that they are going to be streamlining their business operations to the tune of $2 billion worth of cutbacks. This is in response to low growth figures as well as waning sales figures. And in light of these numbers, Nike are set to strip back on their workforce, streamline their automation, and refocus their approach to R&D as well as new sneakers. And this is hardly surprising. It was also a huge year for Nike and theft that is occurring at every single stage of the supply chain, from the sneakers being delivered and loaded up onto ships in China, to the arrival of these containers into the USA, the transportation of these shoes to shipping yards and drop stations and warehouses. A quote that stood out to me big time this year when covering the story is that the only time Nike stock is ever safe is when it is moving. Whenever the product is stationary, it is in peril. If you guys wanted to watch my video covering Nike's problem with organized crime, have a look at the video above. Now, it's not just organized crime that Nike have been dealing with, it is also the flagrant retail thefts that have been happening on the ground, where brazen thieves stroll into Nike stores and just rip stuff off the racks and walk out the store. Shoplifting in broad daylight, with impunity. This has forced the closure of several Nike stores, including one of their major stores in their home city of Portland, and has caused Nike representatives to appeal to their local constituency to beef up local security. One of the big problems that happens with these security guards is that they're actually encouraged not to get involved with shoplifters. If someone grabs something and walks out of the store, these security guards are being told not to touch them, not to mess with them, which kind of calls into question the entire purpose of them being there in the first place. It really is solely as a deterrent measure. Tom sexual harassment. You guys must remember the story from earlier this year where Tom Sachs had a slew of serious allegations levied against him in respect of the toxic workplace environment he had created for people at his studio, as well as allegations around sexual misconduct, inappropriate behavior and inappropriate language, and just being a general These revelations, which came about in a very public, very conspicuous, and very spicy way, forced Nike to halt the release of his general purpose shoe, which was set to be wheeled out en masse in a variety of different colorways and become sort of a more accessible or democratized Tom Sachs shoe. He would come on record and later apologize. He did this in the form of a letter to his staff. But at this point, both Nike and Tom Sachs are continuing to remain quiet about any future collaboration between the two entities moving forward. James Whitner of the Whitaker Group was named in a $32 million sneaker backdooring reselling scheme. This was a huge story because this guy owns retail chains like Social Status and Amamanier. Through both retail chains, he has exclusive collaborations with Jordan brands. Both brands have very exclusive Tier 0 Nike accounts, meaning these guys not only get their own collabs, but they get awesome allocation of Nike's most exclusive products. It's alleged James Whitner and his partners were backdooring and selling to resellers in China. And that's not even the end of it. Apparently the money that these guys were being paid with, that is large sums of cash money, were being recouped through nefarious and illegal activities such as prostitution in what amounted to an unlicensed money transmitting business. Each one of these transactions was worth at least $10,000 cash. And it's alleged that there were no fewer than 255 of these transactions. Now these are still allegations and this case continues to roll on. There are no developments as I speak to you now, but this is obviously pretty heartbreaking for the sneaker community who look to people like Whitner for inspiration when it comes to black success or creating a name for yourself in the highly competitive sneaker and streetwear retail space. And to learn that someone so high up was doing something so downright deplorable is just disappointing to say the least. Let's talk about some sneaker releases. I think when it comes to the most fun or the most creative or the most exciting sneaker release of the year, I've got to give a special mention to the Asics Gel Light 3 and Marvel and Kith Ronnie Fieg collab. I think this is one of the coolest sneaker releases of the entire year. The fact that they also teamed up with the PSA card grading service was an absolute masterstroke. And then add to that the fact that the whole thing was blind. You had no idea what you were copying. I think all the content that went out around this release was really exciting. And I think this is just one of the coolest releases of the year. I think the best sneaker release of the year were the Nike Corteiz Air Max 95s. If you guys know how Corteiz works, you'll know that they are masters of the guerrilla marketing tactics. They use the streets, they use the youth, they use the power of social media to generate all types of hype and excitement for their products. And when it came to the Nike releases, they showed out massively. The competition that they ran in London for the Gutter Greens was awesome. You had to hit the crossbar in a football challenge. The scenes that we saw in New York with people running through the streets to find bodega were incredible, and the absolute scenes in Paris with people jumping on buses, sprinting through the streets. Like, this brand Corteiz has really brought back the excitement around copping sneakers and copping clobber. And I don't think there was any other sneaker release that you could point to this year that came anywhere near what Corteiz managed to do with their Air Max 95s. In terms of the most viral sneakers of the entire year, I think it's a bit of a no-brainer. It's got to be the big red red boots. These caused such a stir when they dropped. When the early pairs were seeded out to influencers and celebrities, they were the absolute bee's knees. The hype around getting them and just seeing how they fit and how they feel and how they look with outfits was at a fever pitch. So much so that they were reselling for well over $1,000 before they dropped. Sold out instantaneously, but one of the funniest things that happened was, because the shipping took so long for these shoes, by the time people who'd copped them for retail on the initial launch actually received them in hand, the trend had been and gone. And so the resale prices as a result completely tanked. There was an attempt to somewhat resurrect the hype and excitement around that shoe with the Crocs collab that debuted during Paris Fashion Week, and there was a subsequent release of the big black boots, which were also a flop, but I think the most viral sneaker of 2023 unquestionably has to go to the big red boots. It was an interesting year for gatekeeping in sneakers, or maybe not so much gatekeeping, but attempts to get the right type of shoe into the right type of hands. And I'm talking about SBs. Some sneaker shops this year decided to run competitions for their exclusive quick strike SBs, where in order to qualify to be able to buy the shoes, you had to be able to land a specific type of skating trick. This of course divided the sneaker community because a lot of people that are into SBs, myself included, don't actually skate. We also saw this play out here in London when we had the release of the Travis Scott Jordan 1 Low golf shoe. A golf store here in London who were allocated a small amount, where in order to qualify to be able to buy the shoe, you had to hit a drive over 200 yards. And in the past couple of weeks, we've also seen sneaker stores destroy the boxes of shoes, or even get the people that have bought the shoes to destroy the boxes themselves, so as to deter people from reselling. We even had a skate store run a raffle where people that wanted to increase their chances of copping the shoe had to dress up as a Powerpuff Girl. And this of course has divided opinion because everybody on the internet has a megaphone for a mouth. And whilst in some cases I feel like it's doing a little bit extra, I do on the flip side think some of these initiatives are quite fun. And that is it for today's episode, guys. 2023's biggest sneaker news stories in review. There's obviously heaps of stories that I didn't go into. And if there is anything super interesting that I've missed, feel free to let us all know down below in the comments. I'd love to know what your favorite sneaker story from 2023 was. And thank you guys, as always, for your continued support on the channel. Still have a few cool videos to post for you guys before the end of the year. And I want to take the time to say Merry Christmas to all of you. Hope you'll have a wonderful time with your families and your loved ones. And I'll look forward to catching up with you guys early next week. Take care for now, and peace.